Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's Saturday. Finally, the weekend has landed. Hope you're all enjoying your weekend so far. Today, obviously, I'm doing a top 10. I'll also be showing you 3 of my favourite time travel movies, and also a few bits that I've bought over the last week. So I'll start with the top 10. Today, I'm doing Jason Kerr's top 10. Jason joined the group probably 3-4 months ago. He's based in Australia. He runs a brilliant channel, calls himself the Ginga Ninja, reviews some very strange movies that I love. I'm not sure you'd approve of this, Jason Parry, the sort of movies that he reviews, titles such as Dark Side of the, is it the Shark Side of the Moon? All that kind of thing. These really strange asylum type movies. I love all these, and he does reviews of those. He also does very quick 60-second reviews on his channel, which are brilliant. If you're looking at a movie that you're thinking of watching and he's seen it, you can get an answer in 60 seconds as to whether it's going to be worth watching or not. So he's a great member of the group. He always joins in with the discussions, and I'm doing his top 10 today. So I'll start at the top. Number 10 is Ghostbusters. Obviously, Ivan Reitman's 1984 classic, not, I assume, the 2016 all-female version. This movie obviously has 80s and classic written all over it. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Rick Moranis, a host of stars. Just absolutely. Who have I forgotten? I've forgotten somebody. Here we go, we're off. Brilliant movie. Remember when it first came out, saw it at the local cinema, absolutely love it, seen it several times since. You just can't go wrong with it. It's one of those movies that if you've got nothing to watch and you can't find anything that you fancy watching, Ghostbusters will do it every time. So that's number 10. Number 9. This is a movie that I avoided when it first came out, mainly due to the title. I got preconceptions of what I thought it was going to be about, and it wasn't. Number 9 is Fight Club, which is Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. I had this idea that it was going to be nothing but guys knocking 7 bells out of each other for 2 hours, and I thought that's really not my kind of film. It's not my kind of thing at all. And then I saw somebody several months later that had seen it. I told him what I thought it was, and he says, no, that's a small part of it. But the main story of it is completely different. I watched it and it completely blew me away. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I haven't seen it for decades, but I always remember the ending, which obviously I'm not going to give away because there'll be people out there who've not seen it. But it's one that I do need to catch up on and have another watch of. But yeah, normally not my kind of film, but time proved me wrong on that one. Number 8 is Reservoir Dogs. Now, this turned up on quite a few lists over the last few weeks, and I think it was on Rick Malin's list last week. Reservoir Dogs. I thought it was Quentin Tarantino's directorial debut, but I've been sort of put right on that. I've got to be a bit more careful with my facts. I'm being pulled up on odds now. So, it wasn't Quentin Tarantino's directorial debut. His debut was, I believe, a short film called My Best Friend's Birthday, which I haven't seen, but I'd be very interested in tracking down and taking a look at. I believe it's late 80s, so it's way before Reservoir Dogs hit the screen. So it'd be a very early example of his work, and I'd be very curious to see whether there are signs in that film of what we were to get years later. But Reservoir Dogs, total classic, one of the coolest movies ever. The violence in it, again, it's another of those movies. Its reputation came here well ahead of the actual film, and we'd all got the idea that it was one of the most violent movies ever made. And then obviously when you watch it, you realise that most of the violence actually happens off screen. The infamous ear cutting scene is one of them. I was dreading that, and when I actually got to watch it, I thought, you don't actually see it. As soon as he starts to cut the ear, the camera pans away from it, and then comes back after the event. So, but the movie itself was absolutely brilliant, an amazing soundtrack, all sorts of sort of 70s classics on there. So yeah, Reservoir Dogs. That's number 8. Number 7 is a movie I've not heard of. I did actually watch the trailer for this probably about a couple of hours ago, and I have to say it looks amazing. As a comedy, it looks absolutely brilliant. I can't wait to take a look at it. It's on Amazon Prime, so I won't have to pay for it. But it looks brilliant. Have I got the right one, Jason? Is it to do with guys who are sick of their jobs? That's pretty much all I can tell you about it. But I'm definitely going to be checking that one out on Prime. Number 6, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now, as you all know, I'm meandering through the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the moment. I'm taking it at a very slow pace. I'm only as far as Thor so far. And I think the next one I've got is Avengers Assemble. So I've not got as far as Captain America, the Winter Soldier yet. As you all know, I'm not the biggest fan of superhero movies. I'm enjoying the ones that I'm seeing, but I'm also now starting to think, am I going to watch them again? Or are they going to end up on Bin It or Keep It and end up as Bin It's? We shall see. But I've not got as far as Captain America, the Winter Soldier yet. But I'm enjoying the ones that I'm watching. I'm just trying to decide as I go along whether I'm actually going to be watching these again, or whether these are just one-offs, to say that I've enjoyed them once. As you know, with most newer films, I tend to watch a movie once, and after that, it's very, very rare that I'll watch it again. But we shall see. I may change my mind on that one. We shall see. So, number 5, Aliens, total classic. Directed by James Cameron, starring Sigourney Weaver. It's one of those rare movies whereas the sequel is actually as good, if not better, than the original. There aren't many that you can name like that. 2 straight off the top of my head would be Godfather 2 and probably Terminator 2. I'm sure there are more. That might be a question to throw out to you guys, actually. Have you lot seen a sequel that's actually better or as good as the original? Answers in the comments below. But yeah, Aliens was just brilliant. You've got the original movie, which was basically a haunted house movie set in space. And then you've got Aliens, which is like every sort of Vietnam War action movie, but with a very, very different enemy. Absolutely brilliant. There are several cuts of this about. I do actually enjoy the extended cut, which I think is about 2.5 hours long. But as an action movie, it absolutely can't be faulted. Number 4, this is one that I've meant to check out for a long time. I need to track down a copy of this one, The Omega Man. I don't know much about it. It's 70s sci-fi, and you all pretty much know that I love 70s science fiction films. It stars Charlton Heston. I believe it's something to do with the end of the world or something like that. I do need to check it out without a doubt. I've heard so much about this movie. I think it was made about 1973. Yeah, so that's one that I do need to check out. I'll be looking for a copy of that one probably after I finish this video, because that's one that I do need to have a watch of. I mean, if there are, I normally take up normally 1 or 2 movies of each list, and I add them to my watch list. One of them is going to be Office Space, and I think the other one off this list is going to be The Omega Man. So I'll have to let you know what I think of that one. I've finally got around to watching it. Number 3, The Dark Knight. This is probably another example of the sequel being better than the original. I can't remember what the first Batman film was called. It was a particular trilogy. It starred Christian Bale. Is it Batman Beyond or something like that? But The Dark Knight, I think, is mostly remembered for Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, which was just first class, absolutely amazing. I've seen this one a couple of times, and I've always enjoyed it. So yeah, that's a brilliant choice. Number 2, I saw this one many, many years ago. Can't remember much about it. It stars Christian Bale again, I think. American Psycho. It's based on a novel by Bret Easton Ellis. I remember it being very controversial at the time for its violence and its attitude towards violence. Um, but I can't, in all honesty, remember very much about it. Um, so that's another one that I need to hunt down and rewatch, I think. And Jason's number one is Dawn of the Dead. Not the 1979 Romero version, but the 2004 remake. Again, I've seen this a long time ago. All I can remember about it is the fact that the zombies were very, very fast moving. They weren't the usual sort of shuffling, meandering zombies that you get in Night of the Living Dead and all that. Um, who directed it? It's directed by somebody famous. I can't remember. I really should write this stuff down. But that's a great choice for your number one, mate. That's one again that I would love to watch for a second, third time, or whatever. You've put some honourable mentions, or honourable mentions down. First one is Return of the Living Dead. I've seen this one a couple of times. This is just a comedy horror, in the same sort of vein as The Evil Dead, that kind of thing. I do remember roughly certain scenes in it. I do remember being very entertained by it. Thoroughly, really, really, really loved it. The next one, Night of the Comet. This is one that I've never seen. I've heard of it. I can see the VHS sleeve in my head now. Hasn't it got somebody with a face like Freddy Krueger on the front of it, if I remember right? It was one of those movies that when I worked at the video rental store in Stapledale, it was one of those movies that hardly ever moved. It was just always in, and I always meant to grab it off the shelf and just take a look and just see whether this movie was as bad as I thought it was, which is the reason I thought it never went out. But now seeing it on this list as an honourable mention, I'm going to add this one to my watch list because I really, really want to see this now. That's called Night of the Comet. Next one is a trilogy: Night, Dawn, and Day of the Dead. Now this is obviously George Romero's zombie trilogy. Night of the Living Dead is just a legend in the world of horror. I've seen it several times. The last time was probably about 2 months ago. It was on late night TV. It's one of those movies that whenever you bump into it by accident, when you're channel hopping, I'll always think, yeah, I'll watch that. The classic line, obviously, they're coming to get you, Barbara. How many times have we heard that on different movies now? And I've heard people say it as well. A classic movie. Dawn of the Dead, same again. I think it was at the cinema just before I was old enough to actually go and see it, but I knew several people that had seen it and that they were convinced that I would love it. The violence was amazing. It pushed the boundaries. It was actually banned in the UK for quite a while. It got caught up in the video nasties frenzy of the 80s, and it was banned in the UK for quite a while. You can now get it sort of uncut in various different versions. I believe there's an Argento cut. There are quite a few different versions of it. Average running time is about 2 hours and 7 or 8 minutes, I think. It's one that I need to catch up with again. This is another one that I haven't seen for a while. Day of the Dead. I think that was probably the weakest of the trilogy to me. I have seen it and I did enjoy it. But comparing it to the other two, you can't really compare it to the other two. The other two are just amazing. This one's just okay. So that's that one. From Dusk Till Dawn, that's also mentioned here. I think that was on Rick Mallin's list just last week. I know Tarantino has got something to do with this one. It stars George Clooney. Again, saw it a long time ago, but I haven't seen it recently. And yet again, it's another one that I need to catch up with. I remember it being a very fast and frantic horror movie. And I believe the violence was very, very Tarantino in style. So yeah, that's another one I want to have a look at. The Terminator, that's another one. Arnie at his absolute best. Again, this is another example of it having a sequel that was equal, if not better, than the original. But I always remember watching the original and thinking that I wasn't going to make much of it. And by the end of it, I thought, wow, what a movie. I just thought it was brilliant. And I still do think it's brilliant. As for the other sequels, I've been told that Dark Fate is the one to watch. I've seen one of them. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Rise of the Machines, and I can't remember being overly impressed with it, which is why I never bothered with the others. But somebody mentioned this week that Dark Fate is the one that restores it back to its former glory. So that's one that I need to check out. The next one is Demons. Now this is Dario Argento, I'm sure it is. This is another one that I remember coming out while I was working at the video rental store. It was very, very popular, as all Italian style horror movies were popular back in the 80s. I've just started to dip my toe into the waters of Italian horror, or giallo as a lot of it is known. I bought a copy of Phenomena a few weeks ago on Blu-ray. I've also got Tenebrae, and there's a couple of others up there that I can't remember. But I do want to get more into the Italian style of horror film, and Demons is a very, very good film. From what it was never in when I was working at the rental store, it was always out. So that's one I need to watch. The next two are two of my absolute favourites. The first one is Logan's Run, starring Michael York and Jenny Agutter. You all know the story behind it. Again, it is typical 70s sci-fi. It's bright, it's glitzy, it's colourful. It's also a bit dark and a bit bleak. But it's one of those movies, again, that when I bump into it by accident when I'm channel hopping, I will always watch it. And I've just got hold of it on Blu-ray a few weeks ago. I've not watched it yet, but I will be doing that. It also gave birth to a series. I don't know whether you've seen that, Jason. It gave birth to an actual TV series, which was excellent, really, really good. None of the original leading characters were in it. I think Logan was played by Gregory Harrison, and his female lead was Heather Menzies, who I remember mostly from a movie called Piranha in the late 70s. But if you've not seen the Logan's Run series, I would highly recommend it. Really, really good. And the final one, Planet of the Apes. Obviously the 1968 original, which cannot be bettered as far as I'm concerned. I did watch the Mark Wahlberg remake and thought it was all right, but it's nothing special. You can't possibly compare that to the 1968 Charlton Heston original, which is just a total and utter classic. I've seen it. We are going way into double figures with this, way. So yeah, that to me is just perfect late 60s sci-fi with a real punch in the gut ending. So there you go. That's Jason Kerr's top 10. Thanks for that, mate. Much appreciated. A cracking list. Right, next, I've sorted out 3 of my favourite time travel movies. Now, these are in no particular order. So don't be messaging me saying, why is that one number 3? It doesn't matter. These are in no order. Third one, Back to the Future. Now, I've only just recently discovered these. It's taken me sort of 35, 36 years to watch these. The first one I watched probably for the first time about a year ago. I watched part 2, which I thought was an incredible sequel. I haven't seen Back to the Future Part 3 yet. I have heard from someone that Back to the Future 3 is actually the best of the 3. I don't know. I've not seen it yet, but I know it's set in the Old West. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the third one of these. But these movies are just absolutely brilliant. My only regret with these is that, again, that it's took me so long to actually get round to watching them. But as time travel movies go, absolutely superb. The next one is this one, The Time Machine. Let me just put this cup down. The Time Machine, based on an H.G. Wells novel, directed by George Powell. The special effects in this were groundbreaking in the day, which I believe was about 1960 or 61 this was released. This is a movie that was regularly on TV, usually on a Saturday afternoon. It was also paired up on a sci-fi double bill on Channel 4 quite a while ago. They remade this around about 2002 with Guy Pearce in the lead. It wasn't bad, not a bad remake, but nothing, as far as I'm concerned, will better this original. It's just superb, and as a time travel movie, you don't really get much better than this, unless you go for my third choice, which is this little gem, Time After Time. Now, this stars Malcolm McDowell and David Warner, and the premise of this basically is that H.G. Wells, the author, actually built a working model of the time machine that he wrote about in his novel. I don't want to give too much of this away in case you've not seen it. It's set in Victorian London at the time of the Jack the Ripper murders. Jack the Ripper steals the time machine, but the time machine has a feature on it that once it has dropped somebody off, if a certain key is left in it, it returns to the point of origin. So it goes back to Victorian London, and H.G. Wells sets off on a chase through time to find Jack the Ripper and get rid of him. This is an amazing movie. I remember going to see this at Burton Odeon on a double bill, and I can't for the life of me remember what the other movie was. The other movie was the one that I actually went to see, and this was the one that was on before it. And I just thought this was actually much better than the movie that I'd actually gone to see. I just wish I could remember what the other movie was. I must look into that. There must be a poster somewhere advertising it. But this is an absolutely phenomenal time travel movie. If you've not seen it, I would urge you to grab a copy of this. Made about 1979, but a wonderful, wonderful movie. Made in 1979? Just check the date. Yeah, 1979. If you've not seen this, I urge you to grab a copy of this and take a look. I promise you will not be disappointed. So that's 3 of my favourite time travel movies. Now, what have I been buying this week? Oh, a few bits, as per usual. Mostly magazines and books, actually. I got the latest Doctor Who magazine. I love everything Doctor Who. As you all know, I'm making my way through the old episodes of Doctor Who at the moment. I'm coming to the tail end of the William Hartnell era. So, Guy, there will be a Doctor Who update coming very shortly. But I do love to read about all the old Doctor Who episodes, etc. I've got the latest issue of SFX, mostly because there's an article on the new series of Willow. Now, the movie I need to watch again because I haven't seen it for a while. Warwick Davis is amazing in this, but apparently there's a series coming out on Disney Plus. So I've bought this to have a read about what's going on with that. And my Bible, Empire magazine for December, which I'll be having a flick through. And obviously it's unofficial partner, Total Film. So I'll be having a look at those. Now, books. I got hold of this one. This is Quentin Tarantino's first non-fiction book. I also bought this on Audible as well as hardback. It's a hell of a size book. I've listened to a few pages, read a few pages in this, and it is absolutely brilliant. As you know, I'm pretty much obsessed with his podcast. He does a podcast with Roger Avery called Video Archives, and I love listening to that. This guy has got the most amazing knowledge of movies from the 70s, 80s and 90s and further back, 60s and 50s. He's just an encyclopedia. And he sees things in movies that you would never notice. I certainly don't notice. So I'm really looking forward to having a proper read of this. I've got it on hardback and Audible, so I can actually read it and listen to it at the same time. So looking forward to getting into that. The other book I grabbed hold of is this one, called Frankie Says, Stories About Growing Up in the 70s and 80s. Now, I've had a flick through this. I don't think it's one that you read from cover to cover. Well, I wouldn't. But it's definitely one to dip in and out of. And as you can see from the characters on the front, it's basically a delve into the pop culture of the 70s and 80s, which is obviously the main decades that I grew up in. So I'm really looking forward to having a go at that. And also this one, I caught this one by accident. I was searching for something else and found this little gem, Memories of a Cinema Projectionist. Now this is written by a guy who was the projectionist at the ABC Regal and the Regent Cinema in Great Yarmouth. I absolutely adore books like this, local history, cinemas, that kind of thing. So if there's anybody in Burton that is even remotely considering writing a book about local Burton cinemas that has actually worked at them, please do. You've got a ready-made reader right here, because I will definitely be snapping up the first copy. I believe this is actually signed. Oh, it's not. No, it's the other one that's signed. I do apologise. So it's not a very big book, but it's just basically, as far as I can see, full of memories of his time at these cinemas. And I can read things like this for hours. The other one I've got, and it's behind me somewhere, I won't go and get it now, it's Noel Cronin's autobiography, the guy who founded Talking Pictures TV, and that's a very similar sort of thing to that, and that's another one that I need to get into. The only movie that I bought this week is this one, Raise the Titanic. I don't know much about it, apart from it's an early 80s spectacular from Lou Grade. I've heard a lot about the score composed by John Barry, and I've listened to parts of it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Really looking forward to having a watch of this. I was discussing this with one of the group members a couple of days back, and he was talking about it and said how good it was, and I thought I'll grab a copy of that and we'll have a look. So yeah, that's the only movie that I've got this week, is Raise the Titanic. So yeah, I shall let you know what that's like when I've watched it. Right, that's it for today, folks. Coming up to 28 minutes. So thanks ever so much for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with the Sunday service, which is basically the roundup of everything that's been happening on the Facebook channel this week, the Facebook group this week. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I need as many subscribers as I can get. I really do. I love it when I get new subscribers. I always give them a shout out usually. So yeah, if you've enjoyed it, just thumbs up and subscribe. That'd be amazing. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, folks. I'll be back tomorrow, as I've said. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and thanks ever so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Take care, you lot, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Ta-ra.